I developed a 6-week boot camp to help manufacturing staff onboard to the product. After, our first couple dozen through the course, people were coming back in weeks 2 and 3, and they were saying, "Hey, John, I took what you taught us and look what I did with ChatGPT," or "I took what you taught us and look what I did with Copilot." And that's when it just hit me right between the eyes that we're not in a technology gap. We're not in a product gap. We're not waiting for anyone to invent anything. We're actually in an understanding gap. And that's when I called Brock and said, "What do you think about starting a product agnostic training organization?" And that's where Evormore came from. So we spun out. We didn't believe that there was any one product, and we really focused on the human side and the human capability of learning AI. We believe that once you learn how to swing the hammer, there's all kinds of different hammers out there. There's framing hammers and mallets and ball
Right.
hammers. And once you learn how to swing it, you can apply your capabilities to any AI tool.
Hi, welcome everyone to the Data Brew podcast. My name is Telmo Silva from Big Data, and here we talk about anything related to data, AI, technology, related to business. And I usually sit down with industry experts, with people that work in the field, business executives, founders, engineers, anybody that's willing to talk honestly and openly about technology and about the state of affairs. And today we're talking about practical AI with Evormore. John and Brock are here with me. And hopefully you learned something from this.
Hey, Delmo, thanks for inviting us today. Great to be here.
Really exciting to talk to you. Happy to be on a podcast with you, and really excited to get into practical AI.
Awesome. Listen, before we get started, I want to introduce a lot of people will probably know who I am because this will be published through the Click Data LinkedIn network or whatever the marketing gods will publish this through. But I want people to know, kind of where you guys are coming from, whoever more is, what do you guys do there? Just kind of a brief intro.
Yeah, I can tell you the quick story about how we arrived at Evermore. I was working at a Silicon Valley style startup. We were specifically focused on manufacturing, specifically advanced production scheduling, for about the last decade. We had tried the old way, writing lines of code to solve advanced production scheduling problems. That wasn't working. So we developed our own no code tool. We believed that if we could equip business analysts with visual coding tools and build faster, we could solve the problems. We quickly found out that we just found the problems faster, and we kind of hit that adversarial relationship with our customers. The day ChatGPT came out, the CEO of the company came in and said, "Call all your customers. We don't do it the old way anymore." And, initially I had dug my heels in. This idea of moving just to AI and chat, it was foreign to me. I didn't see how it would work within a business setting. But quickly, I was put in the position of onboarding customers to this new purpose-built ChatGPT wrapper for manufacturing. I developed a 6-week boot camp to help manufacturing staff onboard to the product. After, our first couple dozen through the course, people were coming back in weeks 2 and 3, and they were saying, "Hey, John, I took what you taught us and look what I did with ChatGPT," or "I took what you taught us and look what I did with Copilot." And that's when it just hit me right between the eyes that we're not in a technology gap. We're not in a product gap. We're not waiting for anyone to invent anything. We're actually in an understanding gap. And that's when I called Brock and said, "What do you think about starting a product agnostic training organization?" And that's where Evormore came from. So we spun out. We didn't believe that there was any one product, and we really focused on the human side and the human capability of learning AI. We believe that once you learn how to swing the hammer, there's all kinds of different hammers out there. There's framing hammers and mallets and ball
Right.
hammers. And once you learn how to swing it, you can apply your capabilities to any AI tool. And that was really the start of how we got here.
Well, that's interesting to take that approach of an agnostic platform. And do you find that easier or harder to train because you're abstracting a little bit the tools, right? If I was to teach Excel, it's very easy, right? There's structure to it, so the menu is always the same, etc. But being agnostic to the platforms that the customer may end up using, does that make it challenging for you guys to train on, or does that make it even easier potentially?
I would say it's just sort of like an approach like we're teaching people to use email. It's just, a little bit more complicated. So whether you're using Microsoft Outlook or you're using Gmail or you're using another product, you're doing all the same functionalities. So
Right,
we take it and take it down to the basics and say, it's actually a lot less complicated than Silicon Valley sometimes makes you think.
right,
We demystify it and focus on really what is important. And it's really understanding the problems that you're trying to solve. So the questions you're trying to answer in your business day to day, repeatably, and where are you getting the data? And a lot of companies struggle with that data piece. They don't know where they're going to get the information for the reports. They don't always have a line of sight into their manufacturing process. They don't have an idea of like, oh, well, how does that marketing funnel work? So part of the AI process is really getting them to understand what is the process before they start with the artificial intelligence and the automation. And I think right now, because it's like a little bit, magic bullet styles and a little bit mysticism, a little bit, oh my God, it sounds so hard and amazing. If you take a few steps, you understand. I'm working with the problem. How does our company handle it? Who has the knowledge? And then how do we, talk to the AI in the way that makes sense? And then you can replace any AI with that system as long as you know what questions you're asking, where are you getting your data, who knows what's going
right.
on. We can break it down in a meaningful way. And what it's about is generating business impact. So it's people talk about productivity and doing things faster, but doing more is not always better. It's considering how is that changing your business? How are you getting that
Right.
value to make more money, generate more revenue? We want people to have better jobs and be happier, but the business really is looking for that revenue piece.
And part of the reason why we're talking today is because I like your pragmatic approach to things, right? You've embraced the new technology, you've embraced the new concepts, but you also don't hype it up to be what everybody is saying, oh, it's the magic bullet, right? And you've taken a pragmatic approach to it, and you're talking about process and you're talking about people. I love the fact at some point in time, John mentioned that people is the core, right? Which it's true, and processes and data, and you kind of got to go to the basics still, right? It's not a magic bullet. So I like that, and I'm seeing more and more of those, whether it's consultants or companies kind of unveiling the fact that no, it's not magic after all. There's a lot of things behind the scenes. Where do you guys, after a training, after a session with your customers, after your 6-week program, where do you see the customers saw the value, and where do they kind of go next typically? Is there a specific process or a specific department that kind of embraces it faster than others, or a specific type of persona? Um,
Yeah, part of our training really focuses on thinking about AI. And as Brock mentioned, thinking about AI in terms of business impact. Right now, AI is looked at much in a single player lens. Meaning, we all are writing emails, we're doing a little bit more and more, but it's really teams that drive business impact. So during our training, we try to focus both the frontline staff and leaders within the organization to start to think about how to deploy AI to actually affect teams. What are the teams experiencing? What's the pain? That sort of thing. So the other thing that we really look at is talking about return on investment and really breaking that terminology apart. Many leaders have asked us over the years, what's the return on investment for AI? And I say, okay, well, what are you investing in? And oh, we bought ChatGPT. So right immediately there, it's a little bit nuanced, but that's return on cost. Right. So
mm,
that isn't an investment. That lives on your income statement. That's a line item. So when we talk about investments and using our product agnostic approach, we talk about actually spinning up servers, leveraging free and open source software, and actually trying to take traditional software as a service costs that are oftentimes compounding. One more seat, one more feature, one more month. And we actually try to look at it as, if you're making true investments, let's bring it in-house. Let's create a data operations portfolio that
Yes.
leverages AI and automation, and do it in a way that really focuses on self-determination of the business, right? We don't have total self-determination and autonomy when it comes to using SaaS products, right? So we focus on that sort of thing. How are we actually making investments? And then we can have that return on investment or business impact conversation.
All right. So if I get it right, though, you kind of say, okay, well, we can actually limit the cost and we can actually set it up in such a way that the company can be self-determining, can self-govern their own future within AI. But as a business leader in it, I go on belief because I kind of understand the technology and I do see, well, if I have a use for this, my team will have a use for this, right? If this is making my job easier, faster, whatever, then I'm sure I can compound that by giving access to this technology to the entire team. But have you been able to actually measure that improvement of the quality of the teams in terms of using this once a company implements that and kind of is trained on that and is self-sovereign in terms of managing that tool and those systems? Where do they see the most benefit? Where do they kind of go, okay, this is really improving my customer support or how much time my team spends on emails or whatever, right? Was there anything that came back to you?
A lot of the work we do, the team sort of decides what the problem is that they're solving, because every business is a little bit bespoke, a little bit unique, has kind of grown up from different roots. So we help them understand here's where a problem lies that would be well served by AI and automation, and then we look at the sort of end-to-end scope. And part of the process that we do is a little bit of process engineering, re-engineering to say, hey, well, we understand you're using an Excel sheet here. You print it out and somebody writes on it in receiving here, and then you try to re-enter it back into your data. And of course, now your ERP system isn't up to date because of all these manual changes. And say, okay, well, what is the imagined state? So then we work with them to see that, and we see a lot of gains in terms of, well, now people are doing less mundane tasks, less data re-entry. So we find AI is great for data capture. It's great for what we call data manipulation. So, you know, people spend a lot of time with Excel and pivot tables. You can ask AI to do that and it has an answer for you and you don't have to remember things. And it's great for data reporting. So what we see is now people are like, well, now this process is done better, it's more reliable, and the information's not in people's heads, which is a business risk, because if somebody who has your key estimations decides to leave the company or even vacation, your process goes down. This is what we're doing, but then that person now
It
has
allows
the
you to
ability.
continue.
Yeah, but they have now the ability to do higher level strategic tasks in terms of forecasting or planning or running scenarios. So we see this reshaping how people are working, so that now you're getting higher value from the people that are doing. So some of the process, you're quantifying it. We save 3 hours, which is great, and there's a cost to that. But now we're positioning people to be doing strategic work for 5 extra hours a week, and that's something that people are finding hard to imagine, because that hasn't been possible before. But that's where we see a real benefit to companies, where people are now doing strategic work. That's the unlock that wasn't possible even before.
Yeah, something that struck me once where we met in Paris when you guys were here for one of your conferences, and I came back here and I as a CEO I'm kind of thinking, okay, again, how can I make these folks' lives faster, better, a different quality of work, etc. And it made me think a lot about, should I really be worried about return on investment from a euro or dollar point of view, or should I be more concerned that if they don't have this tool in place, now they're doing things that are really not added value for the company, or a lower quality, or making personally their work boring or kind of mundane, right?
Mhm.
So when we came back, I kind of put a few people together saying, you know what, Evermore is got this philosophy, and I really liked it, of implementing our own stuff. I love the way you guys have implemented a lot of self-contained tools that are open source, etc., and that excludes already a lot of problems of being worried about whether OpenAI is listening into your data or training their models with your data, or whether using a tool like a Slack-like chat tool that now somebody else is also snooping on that and applying AI without your knowledge. And so you guys have a very interesting philosophy of implementing these tools. And I came back and I said, that's what I want, right?
Yep.
And the first thing is, where do we implement it? So we started implementing some sort of an AI GPT for the team that is internalized. And I started thinking, okay, where do I want to take this? So I started thinking, well, I want the customer support team to be able to answer support tickets with a higher quality without doing as much work. I want the services team to create RFP documents in a faster way so that they're not, bogged down by typing things. So I started looking at minor improvements in the quality of life of the
Yep.
team rather than the investment and so forth. And I think that there's value there. I think there is value, but potentially unquantifiable, as you guys mentioned. Um, just another question is, are there any specific signs? And I asked you for specific values or ROI, but are there any signs that you can arrive at a company and say, AI is working for this company or not? Are there any signals or anything that you can see? I mean, John, you mentioned you get to a person that say, well, they're all using GPT immediately. That's a little bit of a
Mhm.
red flag. Is like, oh, yeah, okay, that's not using AI, right? Are there signs that are actually the positive side of that? Like you can see, these guys get it.
Yeah, when we look at businesses, we kinda use the history of the way, over the past 40 or 50 years, the way we've implemented software, and there's some generalizations that we can make, and you're actually your last, point there is part of this conversation, so you're focused on the way you guys deliver and support click data. Right? Silicon Valley is focused on the standardizable part of the business, right? So, and the way that you actually deliver your business is the unstandardizable part. That's what each little business unique. So if we look at the past 40 years, 80% big tech Silicon Valley, they've done an amazing job to the nth degree. We have automated, we've standardized, we've best practiced 80% of our business. So invoicing, payroll, purchasing, shipping and receiving, that's all good. But once we get to the 20%, for that same 40 or 50 years, it's been people. And it's been people authoring spreadsheets that largely, and I can think about, I can say this confidently, knowing that your support team and your services team are probably managing a lot of spreadsheets because that's not
Mm.
the standardizable part. So when we actually look at how AI is implemented, we actually look at, a really quick litmus test is the number of spreadsheets, funny enough, because when we look at a spreadsheet, it's a computer program, right? It's a database, but the algorithm lives in the human's head. So spreadsheets are really hard to operationalize. They're impossible to deploy. So we think really good opportunity for AI in terms of the ability to tell how are people implementing AI and are they doing it with business impact, with, to your point, every employee, every citizen of Earth can get behind doing more meaningful work and less mundane tasks.
Are there other signs potentially? Um, do you count on, for example, on a leadership to kind of believe in this and kind of have a message to the company as to where are we heading? Do they have to first set the direction, or do you need to help them get there? Like, what signs are there that you're heading for success or potentially for a long road ahead?
I would say one of the key success factors is the company understands the process very well that they're trying to perform, and it's well documented. There's a lot of companies that will say we have a document, but there's exceptions or special cases, and those ones are harder to implement AI because again, there's no clear path forward. It lives in people's heads. That being said, when you talked about leadership, it's really important to have the leadership engaged in any AI journey because That's where the investment comes. That's where the time for the people to do the work. That's where the sort of measurement comes. And you talked about ROI. Every business is looking for improvements. It's easy to quantify. Sometimes it's not so easy to quantify in a data, and maybe it's a quality of life improvement.
Right.
The leadership needs to understand that there is work. Things might not go as fast. There's going to be a slowdown as there's a learning curve and an adoption and the systems being built. But then that's to accelerate, not just double, but hopefully 10x some of the things you can do. People have said, you know what, I've implemented AI for RFP responses because we have a whole library. We have a very extensive catalog. We just have to customize all of those pieces for the new operation. And that can save 10, 12, 15 hours a week for somebody. And I would say, you're not pushing the button and the AI sends it out. You're pushing the button and then reviewing the AI output for human in the loop. But you're doing that, it's 90%, and you're adding that extra 10% and saying, well, though this was perfect, I want to add in these few things. I know this person likes this or doesn't like, and then being able to say, well, now I have another few hours in my day. So how am I strategizing? How am I adding value?
I'll add to that, Telmo. Just when we look at an actual AI implementation, we're looking at three different tiers. There's strategic intelligence, and that is the leadership. We're looking for governance, we're looking for compliance, we're looking for policy making, we're looking for time making, right? So the investment of the people. And then we have workforce intelligence, and that's the actual upskilling, the training, the idea that we want people using better tools, doing more meaningful work. We believe that AI has created an opportunity that has lowered the bar to access technology and to control your own solution space. So workforce intelligence really focuses on taking the people that author the spreadsheets, they feel the pain, and as Brock mentioned, they understand the process and they understand the questions that the business is trying to answer. And the last tier of an AI implementation is really the data operations or the data intelligence. How are we setting up ourselves so that workforce intelligence and strategic intelligence can be successful in the implementation, implementing the compliance, the governance, and the policies, and then implementing the actual solution spaces. So when we look and say, okay, what are the success factors? You're absolutely right. Top level buy-in, support, and to a certain extent, almost inference. We want them inferring this idea
Right.
onto the staff, and the workforce intelligence is the freedom, the autonomy to learn about the tools, to experiment, and agile, rapid experimentation is part of AI learning. It just is. You have to kind of sit with it. You have to get real mad. You have to, hit those walls.
Absolutely.
Part of the reprogramming of the work that we're going to be doing in a couple years from now to really understand it. And then, that third part is, what's your stack? Are we using redundant things? Where are we renting our cloud solutions right now? Where's our data sitting? And can we unify that data or repatriate it to really set ourselves up for success?
Interesting you mentioned the word unified. Just did a podcast with not us, but on data unification. So something that I believe still, after many years, I embrace chaos. The fact that we have chaos in companies is the fact that we have hundreds of spreadsheets is a fact of life. And I'm a very strong believer in unifying that. Easier said than done. Evormore is a Canadian company. You guys operate in Canada, North America. How is data sovereignty looking for you guys? Um, Tell me a little bit more about kind of as an intro. And by the way, I told you guys last time you were here, I want to talk about data, just have an episode just on data sovereignty. Okay. So this is just an intro to it, but how much is that coming and surfacing through your customers, through kind of the industry right now from where you sit?
It's hugely important now. In 2024, that wouldn't have been a question. It would have been, I I don't care about it. I'm happy with Microsoft, Google, AWS. But with the U.S. elections and Trump coming into power and the geopolitical instability that's brought, we're having people asking a lot more. What about my data? Is it private? Is it secure? And the US has a lot of overreach in terms of data access. They have the US Cloud Act of 2018, where they've said, and they've testified in front of the French Parliament, saying it doesn't matter where your data resides. So data residency does not provide data security. The US can and will access anyone's data regardless of where it is on the globe. So for Canadians who didn't really think much about data security and data sovereignty, this has become a hot topic about, well, how do I keep my data secure? What should I be doing? How can I react to this? Because we have a lot of Microsoft. We've never really considered any other data hosting, and that's part of our evaluation and part of our services is to say, hey, we can help you run your own servers, collect your own data, and do a little bit of repatriation of your data from SaaS systems, because now if you own the source of truth, you own your data, it's very easy to put AI in front of that you own, that you control, that
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
manage, versus waiting for products that you're using to put AI in place. And that can always come at a cost. So you're paying every single service for AI features, where it's actually much easier and cheaper to own your own AI
Yeah,
implementation.
absolutely. It's interesting because he goes above, beyond and above data, sovereignty and geolocation of the data, which is the fear of AI. So we've actually, at Click Data, we do have some Ask AI features. I'm going to call them IntelliSense, kind of like, I don't know how to type the formula, so it helps you build a formula. There's very little data. There's really no data, but we have actually had customers ask us, "Can you disable AI on your platform?" And that struck me as, okay, there is obviously a misunderstanding of how we're using AI in this case, because we're not using it for data. We're using it to help the user type the right formula or use our platform. So there's really no interface with their data. But that fear was so real in these customers that I said, well, maybe that is something we need to do, to give the option to disconnect AI in certain other areas from our platform. And data sovereignty to me is also in that aspect where, we for example, in Europe, one thing that I hear a lot about is we don't have any mega cloud providers. We have one, OVH is one of them, and they're not too far from our head office. And we love them, but in terms of getting to the same level as the Googles and the Microsofts, there's still some work to be done by these independent regions and countries. And the same thing when it comes to microprocessors. We see Microsoft, Google, NVIDIA, Oracle kind of working their magic, and we don't see any international players in there. So one thing that I'd like to discuss potentially in a future episode is this notion of where does that sovereignty end, right? Is it just about implementing technology locally, or is the technology itself, right? The CPUs, the memory that is not also coming from our internal resource. Where do we draw the line, right? Yeah. And what happens if one day, similar to what Google saying, okay, going forward, I will no longer give the right results to these countries for whatever reason, or I will tap into their data. What if those companies say, well, I will no longer sell NVIDIA chips or RAM or whatever other technology is needed as a basic resource for us to be sovereign in the AI or technology area. So these are potentially great topics, potentially getting into geopolitical stuff, but still worth discussing. Thank you very much for attending. I just want to know how can people find out more about Evormore and what do you guys do?
That's evermore.ai. It's EVORMORE.ai.
Show me your T-shirt. I forgot to. You gave me one. Evermore, perfect. I was thinking of putting something behind me, but I didn't have time to print it. I would suggest you guys to check Evermore out and this awesome team where they implement AI the right way, in my opinion, at least. And again, if you're interested in these topics or other topics, don't hesitate to just send me an email at telmo.silva@clickdata.com. If you want to attend the podcast as well, if you have something interesting to say and discuss, always willing to discuss. John, Brock, thank you very much. I'm going to hold you to a second episode on data sovereignty.
Sign me up.
Perfect.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Love
Have an
talking to you.
awesome
Thanks
day.
so much.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Tom.
Thank you.